What was the biggest plot twist that happened in your life? I don't know if this is a plot twist, but I find it funny. My boyfriend used to have a shitty rundown Mustang and would joke with his friends that he liked his women like he liked his cars, can't run. After dating for a year and a half we got in a car crash that left me paralyzed from the waist down. Edit. Yes, we are still together. The crash was not in the Mustang, but in a Ford Ranger. Boyfriend was not injured in said accident. The sass is good. My ex-boyfriend, whom I was very much still in love with, called me one Friday night and told me he loved me and wanted to get back together. I was still hurt by some things he'd done and refused to tell him I loved him too, but agreed to meet the next day to work things out. He died unexpectedly 7 hours later. Joined the army to help people, ended up having to turn my squad in for the rap and murder of an Iraqi family. Hashtag was not expecting that. Well, thank you for turning them in. I struggled with my sexuality a lot. It took me years to admit that I was gay. 10 years after coming out of the closet, I fell for a girl, and it caught me completely off guard. They should make a name for when that happens. Sexual fluidity. I'm still not interested in other girls, just that one. Well, at least you have a good compliment for her. Damn girl, you're so hot you turned me straight. In my late 20s, I met a woman on the internet, Ike, and dated her long distance for 5 years. Flying up to visit her, or her to visit me every couple weeks. We always stayed in hotels when I visited, because she had cats, and I have intense allergies, and it was fun. Spend most holidays, Christmas, and Thanksgiving, with her and her parents. Her dad took me out boating, lots of future son time. Took her home to meet my family. Tried to move up, to be closer to her a couple times, but both times fell through due to problems with my job, but I was working on it. Thought I was going to marry her. On one trip, we decided to stay at her parents' house while they were in Florida. Walked in and there was a note on the table from her parents that said we are in Florida. In case of emergency, contact our daughter Wendy or her fiance Rob. Plot twist, I'm beat. She was cheating on her boyfriend/fiance with me for 5 years and her ducking parents were in on it. Note, this was 2002 to 2006, an example of what life was like before social media. Double plot twist, there is no Rob, she just needed a way to break up with you and this was her parents' idea. Started dating a girl. Her single mom meets my single dad. They mingle hard. Girl sleeps with my best friend. Messy breakup. Now my ex-girlfriend is my stepsister. Life is a sick bitch. Edit. Forgot to add the icing to the cake. They got married on the night of my senior ball. Edit 2. No, we didn't hook up after. Ya sick bastards. Lol. If you played your cards right you could have ended up as your own grandpa. Wife was pregnant with our third and last planned child. We ended up in the ER as she was miscarrying. The nurse cried because the fetus was not viable, so there was nothing to be done. It was horrible. One of the first times I felt completely helpless as an adult. Welp. Turns out the miscarry was actually her body making room for twins. The girls are 5 now. Went from losing 1 to gaining 2. I bought a pair of dress pants for an interview for $2 at a thrift store and found $100 in the pocket. That was a good day. This happened to me once in a Goodwill. I was 10 and begged my mother for a purse I saw in Goodwill. She bought it, even though we didn't have the money. I found a $100 bill folded in one of the pockets and kept quiet all the way to the grocery store trying to figure out how many Beanie Babies I could buy including tax. Then I saw my mom accounting her money and putting stuff back, and I told her what I'd found. Entered seminary planning to be a rabbi. 5 years later I'm an atheist, a teacher, and dating a Catholic. Whoops. When I was around 8 I was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy and some severe heart issues. Everyone kinda just assumed I would die any day after that. Well, come 8 years later I was still here, and my doctors pretty much gave up on figuring out what is wrong with me, so my parents decided to get a second opinion. We went to Mayo Clinic, and I was easily diagnosed with postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, something that is easily treated through exercise. In my case, POTS varies a lot, and can be much more difficult to fight for others, the opposite of what my doctors told me to do. After that I was just like, shut, now I have to plan my future. My brother was gay and kinda slutty in San Francisco in the 1980s. For a long time, he just assumed he had HIV, and it was just a matter of time. He avoided taking an HIV test once they were developed, though, out of fear of finding out. In the mid-1990s a boyfriend finally talked him into an HIV test, and he discovered he's HIV negative. It absolutely shattered him. Obviously, he's glad he's negative, but after years of assuming he'd be dead soon, he had to do some serious re-evaluating. He's married to that boyfriend now, BTW. Told this before and will again. I was a little goth girl in high school and secretly had a mad crush on an upperclassman that was a wrestler and did cross country. My cousin, who was Miss Socialite, also had a crush on him and hit on him constantly. He and I were complete opposites. We rode the same bus, and I was pretty sure I was invisible to him. So one day his friends start picking on me. He gets up from the front of the bus, moves to where his buddies and I are, sits down next to me, throws his arm around me, and they stop. This pisses off my cousin as he and I become friends and he constantly ignores her advances. She later on goes on to have me expelled by saying I had a bomb and was going to blow up the school because she didn't like this or that her BF and I were close friends. This ruined every friendship I had except the one with my/her crush. He and I remained friends even after he moved away, and then closer friends when he moved back. Today he and I are going on 4 years together. We bought a house and car, had a daughter, and are working on plans to build our next and probably permanent home. 10 years later the bitch is still greener than a Granny Smith apple. I was transferred to a division. Within a few months my new supervisor and I hated each other. She was incompetent, and I spoke up when she screwed up. She made my life hell and finally decided to give me a job that she thought would make me quit. I packed up my stuff in a box and asked for help moving to my new desk. She said she didn't have anyone to spare. I was carrying my box and didn't see a spill on the floor, ironically, just outside her office. I slipped, fell, and broke my knee. I'm on permanent disability, very legitimately, received a huge settlement, lifetime healthcare, retired early. She was demoted, then fired, partially due to the way she handled my case. This all happened a few years ago. Recently when my husband and I were grocery shopping, I saw her in the store. I didn't want to see her, but my husband caught her eye and gave her a big thumbs up. She looked pissed. Bill was a self-made millionaire by the time he was 18 years old. That was in the mid-80s. He has been one of my best and certainly most influential friends. 25 years ago he married a girl that I did not like or trust. I told him as much, but he married her weird ass anyways. A few years ago she ran off with a guy she met at a roller skating rink. He apparently wooed her with his zooming around or whatever, and Bill was single again. He met a girl and insisted I meet her. Bill remembered that I had not approved of his ex. We met for lunch at one of those awful buffets. This girl was beautiful. She used English like a scalpel, working on PhD. She was awesome. But I noticed little things about her. She had obviously been to finishing school. Then why did she have fingernail polish on her cuticles and a dress from a 1985 resale rack? There was just a lot of details that didn't add up, and Bill was getting ready to marry her. I told Bill that I thought she was hiding something, but I didn't care. This gal was high class and high-bred. I told him she was great. Bill hadn't met her parents till the wedding. It was at their beach house in Destin. It turns out that my friend hadn't told his new bride of his formidable wealth. But she had been hiding the fact that her parents are legit billionaires. Bill deserves someone like her. The girl who I took to homecoming and the girl who I went to prom with started dating a couple of months after I took her to prom. Damn homie, your duck is a lesbian matchmaker. For 17 years I thought I had 2 birthmarks on my torso. That is until my then GF was curious about them and took a very close look at them. Turns out I have an extra set of nipples. Tiny but fully formed with a realus and all. Plot twist, you are a cat. The past year has been one consistent plot twist. I enter my first year of college, wanting to connect with my grandmother more after my grandfather passed away when bam, she ducking passes away from kidney failure. Try to take it and get my mind off of things by walking my dog more when bam, my dog passes away from leg carcinoma. I try to keep focused on my work and future and do well on my midterms in March when bam, my dad ducking passes away from surgery complications. I tell myself to keep strong and go on with my second year of college. My dad's lifelong best friend promises to teach me how to grill the way my father used to when bam, he ducking dies from a heart attack. I want to upvote you, but I also want to stay alive. Became widowed at the age of 27 after only 3 years of marriage. This was mine. Became a widow 4 weeks after my boyfriend accidentally let it slip that he was buying me a ring. Spent 4 weeks incredibly excited, trying not to let on news slip to others, and failed. I was way too excited. He died before he had time to buy the ring. I can't believe it's been 3.5 months. Quit my professional job with a 2 weeks notice letter quoting John Moo. The mountains are calling, and I must go. Now I make peanuts at a ski resort. I love peanuts. My uncle is actually my father. I'm not referring to my mother's brother. Backstory: my mom slept with 2 brothers at separate times. In the 70s they could only give a blood test for paternity. I didn't find out until I was 14 when we all took a DNA test who my actual father was. My father slept with my mother's cousin. So I have a browse-in. I had a marriage of 5 years with 2 wonderful children, a gorgeous house, 2 cars in the driveway, and money in the bank. Then plot twist, the kids could belong to any of the other half dozen men going out with my wife. Love a good drama. I injected heroin 4 years, but never shared needles. After I had quit, a woman I was with took a steep panel and gave me the worst news, that she had Hep B. My heart was broken for her and myself. For 2 months I was sure this was the case, and that I'd be dealing with us for the foreseeable future. It then turned out that while she was a brilliant person, with English as her third language, she didn't realize that negative meant she was in the clear. When she told me, I almost had a breakdown. So wait, if she thought she had Hep B because it was negative, does that mean she was positive for everything else? Found out that I had a terminal cancer 2 days before moving to my apartment and starting my last year of college. Later find out that I actually have a very treatable cancer. Best plot twist of my life. Got asked out by the girl that told me I was too fat to date after losing over 100 pounds. My mom and I haven't really had any relationship for the past 5 years for a lot of reasons. A couple of huge parts of that being my having left the religion that I was raised in and her having severe bipolar disorder that made her nearly impossible to deal with, which she refused to maintain treatment for. We have only spoken once in the last 5 years, and it was awful. It was about a year and a half ago. I drove down to CA to visit her, 450 miles from me, and tried to patch things up. It ended up in a huge blowout fight, and generally went as poorly as it possibly could. We never spoke again. One morning in May of this year, my dad showed up at my door randomly. He and my mom had been divorced for many years, and said we needed to talk. The apartment building my mom was living in had been set on fire and she didn't make it out. I still can't believe how hard it hit me. It changed me, maybe forever. The worst part was about 3 weeks ago, when I was trying to remember the password to an old PayPal account. I had to have it reset, and it was sent to an old email address that I haven't used in years. When I logged in, I found an email from her, sent just shortly before she died, apologizing and trying to reconnect and make amends. We had been out of contact for so long it was the last email address she had for me, but since I hadn't been using it for years I didn't get her message until months after her death. I found my adoption papers in the family strong box when I was 19, despite having been told my whole life that my parents were my biological parents. And then, you can't end it there. Turns out my parents planted it for me to find. Specifically, I found the certificate stating that my dad was my adoptive legal guardian. My mom was my real mom, which is why I had pictures of her with me at the hospital when I was born, which is also why I never suspected a thing. They had me via sperm donor. I always wondered why I didn't look at all like my dad, but I looked like a carbon copy of my mom. Apparently this was a huge relief to her as I grew up, because the entire family knew except me, and the fear of having a huge, loud, Irish family letting something like that slip was pretty serious. I'm honestly shocked they managed. They were never going to tell me, but they decided that for an accurate medical history, I should know that I don't have my dad's predisposition to heart disease. My dad cried when he told me because he was so worried that I suddenly wouldn't love him anymore, as if my entire childhood was a lie or something. I laughed and told him of course he was my dad and always would be. It brought us closer. But it also explained a lot of things in my childhood, like why I didn't look anything like him, why I didn't need glasses, but my parents were both blind as hell, etc. I was pursuing this woman that I worked with, and she was playing along and flirting back with me. She would often just gaze at me and hold eye contact with me in a very seductive way. I was totally hooked on her until this one day. She confessed to me that she was married to a woman. January 2011, wife pregnant, good health, mom alive. March 2011 through January 2012, miscarriage, manuscript diagnosis for the wife, cousin hit by train, mom passed away from pancreatic cancer, wife has affair with guy she met at funeral. February 2012, wife threw me out of the house on Valentine's Day. One time I put on my pants, but then I reached into my pockets and guess what? There was $1. Had 2 cats. Adopted them at different times, and they were the same age or close to. They both got sick and had to be taken to the vet. He took blood tests on both of them, said he noticed similarities, and then ran them against each other. I don't understand what exactly he did, but it revealed that they were related. Yep, like brother sister. They were adopted years apart, one as a kitten and one at 2 years old. Barely look alike either. Honestly couldn't believe it. Parents split when I was little. Came out to my mum and stepdad when I was 13. Phoned my dad up when I was 16 because it was time I had to let him know. Dad, I've got something to tell you. Whatever it is, I love you. I'm gay. So am I. What?